Moonpig.
Hello and welcome to the Moonpig Tech Podcast. My name is Richard, and joining me on hosting duties today is the legendary Leon.
Thanks, Rich. How are you today?
I'm very good, Leon. Did you like that alliteration?
I did that. That's very good, actually. Very good. Yeah, we need more alliteration in life, I feel. Who we got today?
Well, Leon, who indeed, I'm very excited about this one. Today we are talking with one of our developers, Max Church, about rapid prototyping. Max, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Could we start with perhaps just a little introduction to who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Max, as you've said. I'm in the AI team, doing a lot of the AI features that we're working on in the business. And so a lot of this means going into different teams and whipping up a lot of prototypes and integrating AI models into places where we need them.
That sounds super interesting. So is it kind of a mixture of evangelism and sort of hands-on dev work and perhaps a bit of coaching?
I say it's a lot of solo work. So we're all pretty zoned in the team on the latest developments in AI. So we'll go off and prototype a different feature that we think could be cool and try and get some feedback on it. And in a lot of this process, we realize that half of the ideas that we've thought of just aren't possible or aren't very good. So that's sort of the whole flow that we do. Once we have an idea that we think is going to be really good, we will then take that to the actual team that we think we're going to be working with, or try get a more functional prototype working.
Okay, awesome. So that's why we're talking to you today. We're talking about the prototyping side of things in particular. And I think we're going to frame it around a particular project that you've worked on recently. So maybe we could start by talking about the background into that project and the opportunity you saw.
Yes, I think you're talking about the AI stickers project that we've just completed. Yeah, so AI stickers is a big feature for Moonpig, especially in the editor now. We've launched it recently, and it's got in the first couple of weeks it had around I think 1 million or 2 million generated stickers, which is it's pretty nice. I saw some of the stats today on like the usage, and it's definitely up there in our usage stack of the features. So we started out with a sort of a pipe dream of wanting to use image generation in Moonpig. There was conversations between me and another one of my colleagues who I think is now departed the business, but and we were talking about how cool it would be if we had image generation for stickers. Um, because one of the key issues that I was having when I was making cards for my family was I'd go to the stickers and then there wouldn't be a sticker that I wanted, or there would be something really specific which I knew that stickers definitely wouldn't have. So let's say like I want to see a depiction of my family member holding up a big trophy. It's quite probably unreasonable to expect that just Moonpig would have that natively. So we sort of realized the opportunity that image generation could have in here. Um, and we knew that the space was developing pretty quick to where having a feature that could serve customers might actually be possible. So we started out by doing a pretty quick prototype, just testing the actual image generation feature itself. We're talking around playing around with models, testing to see how much latency that there is in image generation. And once we had a good sort of scope of what image generation was, we then thought about either doing a whole integration with the actual editor at the time, or we could whip up a prototype on the side and try to get the feature tested in front of users before we delve into the whole project.
Of course, that's really interesting. So to rewind a little bit, you said at the time, what was the sticker offering in Moonpig Editor at the point before you came on board, started looking at it?
Yeah, so the stickers feature is a set of pictograms that you can sort of put in the card. And this, as you can imagine, sort of pads the inside of the card out, you might want your text in there, but if you want to have let's say a photo of a dog or something in there, that's not a photo that you upload, you just want a quick little pictogram, that's what the sticker feature was. Obviously, that has, as I sort of mentioned, its constraints with the library that designers and other places where we get the stickers from. The library is sort of limited. We can't produce a sticker for every occasion for every person.
So it's kind of like when you go into the supermarket, you see those packs of stickers on it. It's kind of like one of them, I guess.
Exactly.
So it's down to what designers have designed.
So your big idea then was to say we've got this list of stickers that we can put inside our cards. Wouldn't it be really cool if someone could just say what they wanted and a sticker is created on demand to meet their requirements?
Yeah, exactly.
So with that in mind, and you spoke about how you started to prototype it. Let's sort of dive into that then. How did you approach coming up with the initial proof of concept that this idea was even possible?
Yeah, so there's sort of two trains of thought when you're making a prototype. You can either go and try get a basic implementation in the software that you've already got, or you can start a totally new project and try and make something which is good enough that you can get the information that you actually want. And I think for this, you've sort of got to realize, what are you prototyping for? Are you prototyping for like the feel, or are you prototyping to find out the limitations, or are you prototyping to get user opinions? And what we realized is that we wanted to get this in users' hands and see how they'd fare with it. So we created a brand new website, which was a bare bones basic implementation of the editor, missing a lot of the key features that the editor has. But we realized that we didn't really care about the editor features. We just wanted to see how users would play around with stickers, if the latency was acceptable, if the ideas that we had for user interface were at all reasonable, or if they expected something different.
So when you say bare bones, that was literally something that would accept the prompt to generate the sticker generated, users can stick it on. And then how did you gather the feedback?
So we did a couple of things. We firstly gave it out internally. So there was a prototype link put together where we gave it to some of the engineers in the business, and this is pretty useful a lot of the time because the opinion on AI stickers and other AI image generation can vary pretty wildly. So you get a lot of honest feedback of people who don't really mind saying their true opinion, which is very useful when you're looking for feedback. So I'm very grateful to anyone who did express their opinion. But also what we did, we went to external users using a user testing environment that we've got, where we can just give them a walkthrough of a certain demo that we've got, and we can get their feedback at the end of it. And this was pretty useful to us. We got some good opinions, and we realized what was and wasn't going to be acceptable to users.
Cool. So this is a standard. I think a lot of companies do this kind of thing. You know, there's a service out there that provides users, if you like, to actually test a prototype that you built, or maybe even to test on your actual website. And you actually do interviews and get feedback from that. And then it's a case of just going through those interviews and adjusting your prototype accordingly. Did you go through a few iterations of the prototype?
Yeah, so with AI stickers, there's a few different things that we were toggling as these prototypes would go on. We toggled things like the user interface to see if users disliked or liked a certain iteration more. We also had tweaked the model between journeys because we knew that the model that we were using in the second time around was a lot quicker than the first time around. So there was different things that we tweak and see if that improved the sentiment of the users we got back. Obviously, a lot of them weren't the same users, but still, we felt like the information we were getting back was pretty useful.
So let's just talk about that prototype then. So you mentioned you built out something that looked very much like our editor, with most of the functionality disabled and the ability just to focus in on the stickers and give some sort of feedback to say whether you were happy with the stickers or not. How did you go about building that and deciding that was the way to test this feature?
So we built it in Next.js, which was a environment that I'm pretty familiar with from both within work and outside work. We use Next.js for obviously the web, but I've also got a bit of experience with it for personal projects. So I was pretty comfortable, especially since I was the one making this prototype. It was pretty useful that I was very comfortable in the stack itself. But also, so there was a lot of using AI in generating this site. And especially recently, this has got a lot better to where you can create prototypes which are very realistic.
So building a prototype, getting that feedback, iterating on it, it seems like you would have to have quite a fast iteration on that. You'd have to build quite quickly. So using AI and an environment you're familiar with, and also not making it too big, that means you could actually move a lot quicker.
Yeah, so yeah, you're exactly right. Because I understood the environment pretty well, and it was a small project with a lot of the main aspects of our very big web repository taken out, I could pretty quickly iterate and I could do it without worrying that someone was going to push some code over mine or I was going to break a key feature of the website. And it also helped because we could single that package out and minimally deploy what we wanted so that we wouldn't have to spin up a whole set of servers for irrelevant processes so that we could just test this one feature. It also allowed us to simplify how we collected some data. So there was also a moment in time when we had um, an accept and reject buttons for the stickers which were generated. And we could do that pretty easily because we didn't have to worry about sort of preserving any we didn't have to worry about sort of preserving any data that that web would have to consider, whereas a brand new project that's bare bones testing a feature can sort of be a bit more relaxed on something like this.
And really, you've got a limited amount of stakeholders that actually care about it. You can actually be quiet. You can actually really minimize the amount you have to build. So doing things like getting quick feedback was probably really easy. You just, I don't know, stick it in an S3 bucket or something and then just have a look at it. So that's really, and I think that's really important, isn't it, when you're doing these kind of prototypes, is to actually do just enough to answer the question that you've got. So you come in with a hypothesis. The user's going to engage with these stickers. Are they even going to know what to type into the prompt? Are they going to like what comes back? And that's really good, having that clear set of objectives with the experiment you're about to learn and just minimize the amount you build for that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth noting that when you're building these prototypes, a lot of the time you really don't know whether the product you're building is going to be viable. So you're sort of doing what you think is going to be the best idea and what can help you try get the best feedback, but none of the ideas are out there in the world yet, and you don't have the feedback that you can iterate on. So it's really about just throwing out what you think is going to be the best and using a bit of taste rather than going on any sort of numbers or whatever, which I think is where prototypes can often fall apart. If you get too caught up in trying to go for numbers and over measuring certain things, you can get lost in making something that users don't actually want at all.
So it strikes me you went in with a very clear hypothesis with this prototype. You knew exactly what you wanted to measure, what you wanted to learn from it. You built that quickly, got it in front of some internal customers, internal users, a few external customers. And at what point did you start to feel that, yeah, okay, we're onto something here. We quite like the model we're using. UI seems about right. How long did that sort of journey take?
Yeah, so it's actually quite interesting. We went through a period where we almost put the project on hold because the models we were using were taking time of around 20 seconds, which we knew that a user wasn't going to wait for. And we knew this just from our hunches and also based on testing it with the actual users themselves. And everyone said that this was too long to wait. But then what happened was, as AI models seem to do pretty frequently these days, a brand new model came out which just made the whole project completely viable. And we found it very easy to be able to spin this up, and the latency was cut by around, I think, half. So, and that was just our bare bones implementation. Like we knew that if we implemented this further and used better hosting and using different techniques, we could get this down even further.
So what's really interesting about all of this is that you had models that were taking, I think you said a couple of minutes to actually generate the image, which wasn't acceptable to users, quite understandably. The project looked at that point like it wasn't going to go ahead. And then suddenly the models improved. How do you stay on top of the models that are changing? Or, I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff out there in AI, particularly at the moment. How do you stay on top of things?
Yeah, so a lot of it is just keeping up to date with all of the hype, even in bare bones communities like online. So having your sort of your ear out in the wind, if I was to say that would is always useful. As well as going to a lot of meetups in London specifically, there's a lot of people who are extremely passionate about
Mm.
AI. And so you often hear these whispers of, yeah, I'm trying out this new model and it's pretty great. But as well as that, there's a lot of these models are deployed online, and all it really takes for you to test out and see if you think it's good enough is for you to go and look on one of the places where it's deployed and just enter a couple of prompts. And like probably half of the time you're going to find that it's totally useless and like it's not really what you're looking for. But a lot of the time you'll realize you've struck gold. This is certainly the case with a lot of the language models coming out at the minute. You'll try one of them and you'll think there's no way this is going to be good, and then you're just blown away with some of the results. Also, another thing, another way that I keep up with this is internally at Moonpig. There's a lot of people who are passionate about a lot of the new AI stuff, and so we've got a good group of people who are really interested in this stuff, and we'll post a lot in one of our chats. And I think that's one way that just having these internal communities as well can really benefit you. Oftentimes, people don't really want to like post their ideas or things they're like super excited about in AI in like a big general chat. So I think having these small communities of where people like really are intensely excited about some of these things can be really great. And the I think actually for this image model that we use currently, it was one of the people from Data, Arjun, who came up with the or who told us about this model which had been released, and we tried it out and we were pretty much blown away instantly that this model was so good.
So there's a bit of luck, but also it strikes me you almost need a journalistic instinct for this kind of things because you're having to investigate and follow leads, and luckily Arjun at work actually had spotted something, told you about it, which is really really good. Do you have a set methodology, maybe set prompts that you've attuned yourself over the time you've been working this way to actually give you kind of instant feedback whether these things are any good or not?
I wouldn't say it's a set methodology or a set bunch of prompts. I'd say that there are a lot of, as well as the qualitative things, there's a lot of quantitative things you can look for as well. So there's lots of leaderboards online and model evaluations which you can look to. There's one called the image generation leaderboard, where they literally will have a sort of A/B test of which one do you prefer, where they've generated an image with model A and model B, and after a certain amount of times of competitions between different models, you can get a good comparison between which one's going to top that leaderboard and which one is sort of lacking behind. So if you have a model which appears and it quickly goes up that leaderboard, you can pretty with some confidence know that the image model is pretty good. I'm really sorry. I think I kind of dodged your question, Leon, there, but I thought of that again.
That's no, that's incredible. The fact that things like this are out there and that you're aware of them. That's how you keep on top of these things. So it's like knowing um, knowing your domain, understanding your domain, knowing where to look, who to talk to, kind of thing, is exactly what I think you need to do, particularly something as fast moving as AI is at the moment.
Yeah, this really isn't a field where you can do like company mandated trainings and sort of just be fine on. Like you'll be playing with models which are like years behind.
So you have to have the enthusiasm and the passion for it. Absolutely.
I think you do. Yeah, I think that's the only reason why I'm doing this.
So let's go back to the AI stickers project. You had built your prototype, you'd got feedback, you got to an aha moment where you were like, yes, this model's now good enough. We can probably go with this. What was the time lapse on that? How long did it take you to get from initial idea to, yes, this is something we can now go ahead and build?
So from the initial idea, I'll be frank that AI stickers was sort of one of the low-hanging fruits of using image generation in the business. We'd sort of targeted it out for quite a while. I think a couple of people in the business were having the same thoughts as what I was having, especially Peter. I know that every time that I'd spoken to him, he was very enthusiastic. Peter being the head of AI at Moonpig. Once we'd sort of come across the idea, it did take us a while to start building a prototype on this, but once we kicked off a prototype, I think it was around 1 week, which I think goes for the value of building these prototypes. It was 1 week to having something that we could like just give to a user and ask what they thought of the images and would they like this, like yes or no, and like a scale of 1 to 5 of how much they'd like it in the actual editor. And we gave out to users, and the feedback was, I think, one of the highest that we'd ever seen, at least from speaking to the people who I spoke to. Um, and so that's one of the key indicators. If someone's saying like, I really want this, I really want to use this, and they're using the feature, I remember in one of the interviews, the person who was using it spent time outside of the period that they were being paid to give a review for. They spent their own time playing with the feature, and we could see this on our logs. I think that's how we kind of knew that this was going to be a pretty killer feature.
So within a week, you'd basically got a positive indication that this was a good idea.
I think for me as well, if it had turned out it had completely bombed, it's only been a week. That's really to get a decision in a week is awesome.
Yeah, this is the power of these small prototypes. You can really quickly spin something up and see if people will like it. I really think this is the way that things are going. I think we're, especially with AI, it's lowering the barrier to a lot of these really lightweight prototypes.
This is great because this is very close to my heart as someone that's been kind of following the agile movement for far too long. But that was always about small iterations, small batch sizes, getting feedback. And I think AI is going to help a lot with this, because to get up and running that quickly. And this was how many months ago was this, Max? It's probably about a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd say this was probably around a year ago.
Yeah, and you look at some of the tooling out there now that you can just put an idea together, upload a few files, and a working prototype is basically spat out the other end for you. Okay, the code probably isn't going to be to the quality that some engineers would expect, but it's something to work with, it's something to get feedback on. So
Yeah, and we made the prototype with the expectation that we were going to throw out all of the code, and that's what we pretty much did. The only thing which was kept common was the model that we used, and broadly the style of UI of having stickers in a row and a prompt generation box. And I mean that's the whole way that you actually get the speed. It's by not absorbing a lot of not absorbing a lot of the opinionated parts of the big code base you're working in and just going in really small and doing a true MVP of what you want to build.
that's cool. So with that in mind, there came a point where the prototype wasn't enough and that we wanted to give it to all the Moonpig customers out there so they could generate their own stickers. What was that process like? So actually making it real.
Yeah, this was interesting. This was my first experience of taking one of these into real production. I probably thought it was going to be easier than it turned out to be. But yeah, so what the whole process essentially was me integrating with the team, which was the editor team that control the whole editor domain, and they also control the old stickers feature, or I wouldn't say the old stickers feature, but maybe the default stickers feature. And so it was integrating with them and looking at their domain and seeing how some of their current features worked. I remember looking at I remember looking at the smart text feature that's currently in the editor, where you can use you can use large language models to generate the prompt for the inside of your card. So if you're stuck on ideas, you can just give it to the AI and it will come up with something pretty damn great for the inside of your card. And I looked at the architecture of a lot of this, and we quickly found a place where we thought a lot of the backend code could go. And there were a lot of good patterns that were laid out within that for things like rate limiting and how we keep this secure. So a lot of the things in the actual repository itself were kind of set out, and from there it was getting our heads down and getting code down. After a while, we got into places where we were dealing with challenges that were maybe more editor than the original AI project.
So this was the team that was owning the editor piece.
Exactly. There were probably some problems in there which were pretty confusing to me, especially not having been in the repository, which may not have been confusing to them. But that was a good learning curve, and I think I especially gained a lot of knowledge from working with this.
So it was a lot of collaboration at certain points with the team that owned that's part of the Moonpig space.
Yeah, there was so much collaboration, and it was really great because it seemed like everyone was on board with helping.
Okay, Max, that's really cool. So you've taken this idea that you had, you've prototyped it, you've proven it's a good idea, you've actually got it into production, and it's now live. So first off, congratulations. Um, Secondly, what's next? Have you got any further plans for it?
So yeah, it's now live. I think customers are loving it from what we keep seeing. But as for what's next, I think we're probably going to see a shift up of a lot of the UI around the stickers feature. We we implemented it in one way, but as with all things in the passage of time, we're going to learn a lot more in the ABs and realize that maybe this way of doing it wasn't correct, or maybe we can remove a click from a user at some points, or maybe we can help the user and direct them to it a little bit better. So I think in the actual user interface and how a user gets to the feature, maybe a lot of that will change. And maybe on a more model perspective, I think as time goes on, there's going to be new models released which are quicker and better quality. I think if you go into the actual nitty gritty and try and break the image generator itself, there's a lot of edge cases where it doesn't provide the best stickers, but that's something that we obviously want to improve. Um, it's just trying to keep within the constraints of the whole system. Like you can't really at the minute with a lot of the AI stuff have it fast and great. Obviously, we'd like things with zero latency and to be perfect, but that's not really the reality of what's happening with the AI magic box that we sort of throw our data into and expect this incredible output. But I think yeah, we'll improve a lot of the things. We'll improve a lot of things with the model. Some things after we'd actually launched the stickers that we did improve was a lot of the latency. So we launched with latency of around, I think, between 8 and 9 seconds, which wasn't really what we thought we could get. And after a lot of tweaks, we got this around to, I think now it's around 4.5, 5 seconds, which I think is a lot better. It feels pretty snappy. I think it's really acceptable for a user to wait for what are some pretty good stickers. And I think in the usage rates, we see that the users do love the ones when it does eventually make them.
That's cool. It's yeah, it's amazing that sometimes latency gives people a little bit of confidence that it's actually doing something good. So I think with generation, yeah, it'd be great if it was instantaneous, but it doesn't matter too much. Looking back to the project as a whole, then from the prototyping to getting it live, are there anything you've learned that you're going to take into future projects when you come to prototype something again, or is there any learnings you're already using?
So I think yes, we'll definitely use a lot of the learnings from this. Um, I think what we did like was how we prototyped the feature. We came quite quickly to a verdict whether this was good or not. I think too often you can get into this analysis paralysis of going over a feature and forecasting the different business metrics that you could get to, and then you actually try to play around with it, and you realize that A, users don't want it, and B, it's just not viable. So I think we'll continue doing a lot of this where we test the features first by making quick prototypes. That's something that we're definitely keeping. And I think a lot of the technical decisions we made with keeping it lightweight will also keep a lot of that in the future projects we do. I think maybe some things that we'd change would be. I think personally, I learned a lot from integrating it with a big established code base, and maybe go into the code base with more of a keen eye on how things are actually working. It was like I think I was a bit naive when I first went into the actual the first integration of it. Um, but I think the naivety came with some strengths of like just trying to get something in the repo that would do like a bare minimum. But yeah, I think I was slightly slightly naive with how easy it would be, which I think now I wouldn't take, or I don't think I'd suffer the same for.
I think that's interesting. That's something I think we all learn as engineers as we progress in our career, that what feels like it should be a really quick, simple thing to do seldom turns out like that. But I think as well we learn the more we do this, that actually there are improvements we can make. And maybe when you see things suggesting to teams that, hey, I had a little bit of trouble with this, is there anything we could do to make it more seamless next time we do something like this? So I think it's all value. Well, thanks for sharing your journey with user generated AI stickers, Max, and congratulations again for getting this out and to Moonpig customers, which I think, like you said, from some of the feedback we've got on the stats we're looking at, they're loving it at the moment. So that's great. And yeah, that's us closing off for this podcast. Rich, anything from you?
No, I enjoyed that very much. Just thanks to you again, Max.
Yes, indeed. Thanks very much. See you soon.